Welcome to the space of souls who have loved deeply, hurt deeply, and are now learning to rise from their own wounds. If you are an Aries, or if you've ever loved one, you know there is no pain quieter than when a flame slowly fades in silence. They don't disappear out of anger. They leave because their soul is simply too tired to keep burning in a place where their light is no longer felt. Tonight, let me tell you a story. Not just about leaving, but about how silence sometimes becomes the last language of a heart that once loved with everything it had. There comes a strange moment when in the noise of life, Aries suddenly grows silent. No more arguments, no more need to prove what's right or wrong. They simply stand there, like a small flame brushed by the wind, fragile, yet still trying to hold on to its last bit of warmth. Most people see that silence and think Aries has found peace. But in truth, that is the moment their soul begins to withdraw from a place that no longer feels alive. Aries doesn't walk away out of anger. They walk away because they have already loved to the end of themselves. Their silence isn't pride, it's exhaustion. They've spoken enough, forgiven enough, tried enough. And when every effort disappears into the cold air of indifference, they understand it's time to keep something for themselves. People often mistake Aries' strength for armor, a shield that nothing can pierce. But beneath that armor lies a gentle, tender heart, one that still believes that love, if it's pure enough, can heal everything. That belief is what makes them ache, because not everyone loves with the same depth, the same unguarded devotion. When an Aries falls quiet, the world around them shifts. The light where they stand softens, no longer a wild blaze, but a steady glow, like a candle halfway burned, flickering in the wind. And somehow, in that silence, there is a strange beauty, the beauty of someone who has loved, fought, and believed, and now simply bows to the truth that not all love is heard. Someone once told me, when a soul stops speaking, it doesn't mean they've stopped loving. It means they've learned words are no longer enough to reach where they wanted to be felt. That, I think, is the essence of Aries' silence, a silence that speaks, a silence filled with 1,000 things left unsaid. If you've ever had an Aries in your life, remember this: they didn't leave because they stopped loving. They left because they loved too much. They didn't disappear to make you feel guilty, but to save the last bright piece of themselves. For an Aries flame cannot keep burning in a place without air. This world sometimes doesn't need more promises, it just needs more understanding. Aries never asks anyone to change them. They only wish to be seen with honest eyes. And if someone ever told you Aries was too intense, too direct, too sensitive, perhaps they never stood close enough to see that behind every reaction was a heart trying to protect what it loved. Because when Aries loves, they love with the faith of a child and the courage of a warrior. They believe that if they give enough, the world will understand. But when they realize not everyone can hear the language of sincerity, they choose silence as a way to preserve the dignity of their heart. That silence isn't the end. It's the beginning of transformation, the moment Aries pulls their energy inward to heal. In that sacred stillness, they learn to listen again, to sense where their light still belongs and where only ashes remain. Strange, isn't it? Someone once so radiant now walks quietly through their own dusk. But within that stillness, Aries is rewriting destiny with a softer, truer light. And sometimes when they turn back, there's nothing left but a gentle breeze brushing through memory, carrying the last warmth of a Aries heart that once burned completely. In that hush, if you listen closely, you'll hear something faint, a soft knock from the universe, a whisper from a soul preparing for a new journey. A new layer of energy unfolds, delicate as morning mist, but clear enough for those who can feel it. To know deep inside, something is changing. There are days when you see Aries still smiling, still greeting you, still saying all the familiar things, but something feels different. Behind that smile, the light that once burned so brightly has dimmed. You won't notice it right away because Aries keeps trying to act normal. They keep working, laughing, caring. But the way they look at you, it isn't the same anymore. It's as if a part of their soul has quietly pulled back, preparing for a retreat even they haven't yet admitted to themselves. The signs are small, a sigh lost somewhere in the night, a message typed but never sent, a glance that wanted to speak but didn't. They're still there, but the energy no longer connects the way it used to. Maybe it's because they've started to feel the distance, that quiet space that grows whenever warmth isn't returned. Aries is the kind of soul who gives everything when they love. They don't love with logic, they love with their heart, their intuition, their entire being. They don't need luxury, only the feeling that we're in this together. But when they sense indifference, even in its softest form, they don't explode. They go silent. They wait. They hope it's just a phase. Until one day, the light inside begins to flicker, and they know they're slowly fading out. What breaks Aries the most isn't being hurt. It's feeling unseen. They can handle anger. They can handle conflict. But they can't survive the coldness. Because to them, love is a living current. It cannot exist in frozen silence. They need the rhythm of two hearts still beating together. Someone who keeps holding their hand when the wind turns cold. Perhaps we've all, at some point, been the one who let that fire grow smaller. We get lost in our own stories and forget that next to us is a soul waiting quietly to be felt again. And by the time we notice, the signs have already passed, too gentle, too subtle, visible only to those who listen with their hearts. Sometimes, Aries doesn't begin their leaving with words, but with a quiet gaze. They don't blame, they don't accuse. They simply stop trying, because they understand love cannot exist alone. You can't keep a fire alive with just one hand. So they step back, not because they stopped loving, but because they refuse to beg for warmth that should have been freely given. The universe always warns us before it shifts through a change in the color of light, a slower breath, the way the heart suddenly feels tired. And Aries, with their sacred intuition, hears those signals sooner than anyone else. But they rarely speak of them, because deep down, they still want to believe. They want to give you one more chance to feel what they feel. And when even their silence no longer stirs anything in you, their soul begins to close. No anger, no resentment, just a quiet drifting away like a river drawing back its water after the season of rain. The surface remains calm, but beneath it, an entire world is changing. We don't lose people in the moment they say goodbye. We lose them in the quiet moments we never noticed, the silences we didn't listen to, the eyes we stopped meeting across the same familiar room. And Aries never leave suddenly. They leave piece by piece. Through the nights when no one asks if they're okay. Through the days they keep smiling, while no one realizes it's the last smile of a fading faith. The universe is kind that way. It always sends small signs before the shift, but only those who are truly present can see them. So if you're listening to this right now, ask yourself, is there someone in your life quietly changing while you've yet to really look into their eye? In that moment, when Aries still stands there, but their heart has already taken half a step out of the light, you can feel a delicate shift like the sky before dawn beginning to change color. As if between love and misunderstanding, a fragile boundary is being drawn, trembling, inevitable. And right there, at that edge, the real collision begins. People often say Aries is fire, but no one ever asks where that fire begins. They see the heat and grow afraid. They hear the strong voice and assume it's anger. But what they don't understand is this: every time Aries bursts out, it's not to hurt anyone. It's an instinctive fight to hold on to something that's slowly slipping away, a bond, a truth, a fragile thread of belief. Aries doesn't flare up to win. They flare up to be understood. Their voice isn't trying to dominate the room. It's a cry that says, "Look deeper, listen with your heart, don't make me fight alone." But the world rarely has patience for souls that burn too brightly. People prefer calm, pleasant, easy to digest emotions. So they fear Aries, fear raw honesty, fear the kind of emotion that can't be disguised, fear the gaze that sees through pretense. Someone once said, "A misunderstood flame becomes a storm," because when people can't see the love hidden inside anger, all they'll ever notice is the chaos. And so, slowly, Aries gets labeled too fiery, too impulsive, too much. No one notices the trembling heart behind that reaction, the heart fighting desperately to keep the flame alive. When Aries speaks, they speak with their whole life force. When they love with all the light they have. But when they're misunderstood, when that light is seen as control, a small crack appears, the crack of someone who only ever wanted to love right, but was told they loved too hard. In that moment, part of them falls silent, not because the love is gone, but because they've realized not everyone wants to be awakened. Because no matter how strong Aries may seem, they are still creatures of light. And when light is rejected, it doesn't vanish, it retreats inward, becoming a small, lonely lantern, glowing only for itself. I think the deepest pain in love is not the arguments, but watching the person you love get lost inside your emotions and not understand them. Aries feels this deeply. They don't need perfection. They just need someone who listens when they speak, who believes them when they tremble, who's gentle enough not to turn their fire into a game. If you've ever seen an Aries angry, don't turn away. Listen. Behind the raised voice is a plea for connection. Behind the sharp eyes is a fear, the fear of losing their place in someone's world. Because when an Aries goes quiet, when the fire stops reaching outward, it means their faith has already left. In the long hours of the night, Aries often wonders, was I wrong for loving too honestly, too loudly, in a world that only loves politely? And then they smile. Because at least they were real. They never pretended, never held back. They can't love halfway, can't speak half-truths, can't hide half a heart. That is both their blessing and their burden to live authentically in a world that fears souls like theirs. And then, when their warmth keeps going unnoticed, something quiet begins to happen. The fire no longer burns outward, it folds inward, curling into its center, as if seeking a safe place to keep existing. Aries becomes quieter, softer, more distant. Their eyes drift further away. They stop talking about what hurts, stop arguing to save what's slipping. They simply watch, smile faintly, and close the door a little more each day. That's when their inner compass turns inward toward the stillness that becomes their new companion. And in that stillness, the universe opens another path, gentle as a breeze, but deep as the ocean. A new journey begins, one where Aries must learn to hear the truest voice of their own soul, the kind of light that no longer burns for anyone else, but finally burns for themselves. Aries loves as if the universe only gave them one chance to love. When they open their heart, they don't calculate, they don't hold back a safe corner for themselves. They dive into love the way fire dives into the night, believing that if it burns warm enough, every shadow will disappear. And maybe that's what makes them one of the most beautiful souls you'll ever meet, but also one of the easiest to wound. Aries' love isn't wrapped in sweet words. It's shown through their eyes, in their actions, in the quiet way they notice every small thing about you. They remember your habits, your fears, your dreams. They want to see you grow, to be happy, to be free, to be fully yourself. So when you betray them, they don't hate you, they hurt. They hurt because they believed, because they once saw you through the eyes of absolute faith. They don't resent the one who left. They mourn the part of themselves that believed this time would be different. People often think the strong ones never break. But the truth is, the brightest flames are the most fragile hearts. They don't cry in front of anyone. They go silent, and in that silence, A whole world inside them slowly collapses. I once saw an Aries like that, still smiling, still moving through life, but the light in their eyes was no longer the same. They still glowed, but that glow turned inward like a lantern searching for the reason it still exists. The lesson here is simple but deep. Never mistake fire for invincibility. The brighter the light, the softer the heart. Those who make the world shine are often the ones who need to be held the most when darkness falls. Aries teaches us that love isn't about possession, it's about understanding. It's not about claiming someone, but about seeing their soul clearly and choosing to stay anyway. They don't need perfect love, only a real one. And when they realize that truth no longer exists, they don't rage, they don't punish. They simply step back, like a teacher quietly leaving the room once the final lesson has been given. When Aries leaves, it's never an escape. It's a sacred act of protection, a way to guard the light inside them that still wants to believe in beauty, honesty, and real connection. They don't walk away to make anyone feel the loss. They leave to make sure they don't become what they despise: cold, indifferent, pretending to be fine. Along that journey, Aries learns the fire's most sacred truth. Sometimes, to avoid burning out, you must allow yourself to go still. They accept a short winter so that the spring that follows will begin with them, no longer waiting for someone else to bring warmth, no longer needing to be saved, just finding themselves whole again. There are evenings when they'll sit in silence, watching the sun disappear, and realize that everything is temporary. And in that impermanence, they discover something timeless. To love is to give the brightest part of yourself, even knowing you might lose it. That is the courage of an Aries soul. They're not afraid of pain, only of losing the honesty within their own heart. And one day, when you see them walking away in silence, don't mistake it for the end. Because really, it's the beginning, a return to themselves, to the flame that no one can extinguish. A new journey begins there, where Aries no longer seeks comfort from others, but from the same energy they once gave so freely. And somewhere in the soft wind of the evening, they smile, peaceful, radiant, as if they were never broken at all. From that place, they move forward, and the world opens into something vast and sacred, where leaving is no longer an ending, but a doorway, a divine act of protection, where the flame begins to heal itself in the quiet, unwavering light of faith. When Aries leaves, the world seems to pause for a heartbeat. Everything looks the same room, the same morning light spilling through the window, the same ticking of the clock, yet something feels different, quieter, emptier. As if they've taken with them a piece of the universe's life force, the spark that once made you believe everything could begin again. No one is ever truly prepared for that moment, because Aries leaves quietly. No drama, no tears, no anger. They simply gather back their energy, the very energy that used to make the room glow just by their presence. When an Aries walks away, you don't just lose a person. You lose the warmth that once made the world softer. People often mistake their leaving for pride, but no, for Aries, it's an act of compassion toward their own soul. They don't go to make someone feel regret. They go because they've already given enough, because their spirit needs to return home, to rest, to be reborn, to find again that pure light untainted by pretense, hurt, or cold silence. In every healing journey, there are moments that aren't victories but wise surrenders. When Aries chooses to leave, they aren't running away, they're returning to their truth, to the flame that can no longer burn in airless spaces, to the kind of love that cannot grow where gratitude has been forgotten. And you know what's beautiful? In that very moment they walk away, the miracle begins. Not the miracle of return, but the miracle of awakening for both sides. Aries remembers they don't have to stay where they are unseen. And the one left behind begins to realize that sometimes loss is the only way to truly recognize the light they once had. In the world of healers, we say, every separation from falseness is a prayer answered. And I believe that, because at the level of the soul, leaving isn't an ending, it's divine protection. It's how the universe pulls you away from places that no longer fit, not to punish you, but to save you from yourself, from exhaustion, from giving without being received, from the illusion of love that has long since gone hollow. Aries carries a rare kind of courage, the courage to walk away while still in love, the courage to keep their heart pure in a world that so often forgets what purity feels like. They understand that love does not mean holding on, that kindness cannot survive where it isn't valued, and that sometimes leaving is the deepest act of self-love there is. That is the sacred protection the universe grants to authentic souls, because Aries was never meant to suffer in silence. They were born to shine freely, not to be drained, but to inspire. When they realize their light is no longer being reflected, they turn back toward the source, toward faith, peace, and gentleness, the place where their soul still feels whole. If you've ever loved an Aries, know this: they don't disappear to make you lonely. They leave to set both of you free, you from pretending, and themselves from pain. And if one morning you wake to find the sky somehow clearer, the air quieter, perhaps it's their spirit sending you a blessing. Live truthfully, love honestly, never wound the ones who burn for you. In that loss, we learn the holiest truth about love, that loving isn't about keeping someone close, it's about keeping them free. And in that soft, fading light, as their final warmth drifts into the wind, you finally understand. Every ending with Aries is a beginning of grace, a lesson in courage, in letting go, and in the quiet faith that sometimes walking away is the purest form of love a soul can ever offer itself. When an Aries leaves your life, something in the air leaves with them. It's not their laughter, not even the memories, it's the sense of life itself. That energy that once made long days feel lighter, that could brighten a whole room just by their presence. And when they're gone, the world feels a little dimmer. The absence of an Aries is unlike anyone else's. They don't just walk away, they take their light with them, leaving behind a stillness where you begin to hear the echo of your own indifference, the kind you never noticed before. That's when you realize the true cost of taking warmth for granted. You haven't just lost a person, you've lost the belief that love could heal everything. Aries enters your life as both a challenge and a gift. They don't just love, they awaken. They make you feel everything more deeply: joy, sorrow, the pulse of being alive. And when they leave, those who've touched their energy are never quite the same, because their love, whether it burned bright or ended early, always leaves a spiritual mark, as if they were sent to remind you that the human heart still knows how to truly feel. That is the awakening they leave behind. A lesson no one asks for, but one that makes you grow once it arrives. You begin to understand. Safety will never replace sincerity. Comfort can't replace the feeling of truly being alive. And false presence, no matter how convenient, can never warm a soul. Aries makes you believe in what's real. They can't lie about their feelings. When they're happy, they glow. When they hurt, they burn. They love with their whole being. And that's why their leaving isn't just a goodbye, it's a test from the universe. Will you recognize someone who once loved you with their entire heart? Will you realize that love isn't about showing up, it's about the energy that once made your heart skip a beat? Sometimes, only in their absence do you understand those mornings with them were actually sunrises disguised as people. And after they're gone, you start to live differently, softer, truer, more grateful. Because every awakening needs a loss to begin. I've always believed the deepest pain isn't when Aries leaves, it's when you realize too late that their love was a once-in-a-lifetime awakening. They showed you what it means to live, to love without holding back, to believe again even in a world that wounds. And when they disappear, the lesson that remains is this: never let a truthful soul feel alone inside the very love they gave you. If you're listening now, and there's an Aries who once left a mark on your heart, pause for a moment. Think of them. Think of how they once made you believe in goodness again. And if you are an Aries, remember, even when someone can't see your light, the universe does. Every path you walk has a reason. Every person you touch is changed by your presence alone. So tell your story. Share what love, whether given or received, has taught you. Somewhere out there, someone needs to hear it, to learn how to love more honestly, more bravely, and more kindly. And when all the noise fades away, only gratitude remains for the light that once walked beside us, for the truth that love, though painful, is always worth it. In that quiet moment, you'll understand that absence isn't loss. It's a silent miracle, where the soul is illuminated by the same light it once awakened in another. To all Aries souls walking your own sacred path, may you keep burning with your truest light, no matter how cold the world becomes. Never shrink yourself to fit someone else's shape, for the universe did not create you to be a copy. It created you to be the flame that reminds others life is still alive. And to those who have had an Aries in your life, whether they're still here or have drifted far away, may you learn how to keep their warmth, to see the beauty in ordinary things, and to say thank you while your heart still has the chance to speak. Thank you for listening, for feeling, for allowing your heart to open with this story. May your days be gentle, your nights peaceful, and may your soul always shine bright enough to know that true love, whether it stays or leaves, is always a blessing.